Welcome to Why I Left Religion with Coach Renz. Before we get started, I want you to go ahead on over to YouTube. If you're already watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon. And if you want your questions to be answered, whether through conversation, through text, or through the comment section, or through a video, hit the super thanks button. You probably get a video made about your question or statement. So, what are we talking about today? Creflo Dollar. Creflo Dollar, prosperity preacher. Many people know Creflo Dollar from his time frame of becoming a prosperity preacher and preaching about tithes and how God is going to reward you and you're going to prosper if you tithe. Well, he just recently did a sermon rather. Well, he kind of recanted a bit of what he had been teaching in the past. He said, throw away all the books that he had been teaching. Matter of fact, let me let you watch this video, and then we'll talk about it.
I want to start off by saying to you that I'm still growing, and that the teachings that I've shared in times past on the subject of tithing were not correct. And today I stand in humility to correct some things that I've taught for years and believed for years, but could never understand it clearly because I had not yet been confronted with the gospel of grace, which has made the difference. I won't apologize, because if it wasn't for me going down that route, I would have never ended up where I am right now. But I will say that I have no shame at all at saying to you, throw away every book, every tape, and every video I ever did on the subject of tithing, unless it lines up with this. I've done some corrective teaching in the last 10 years, but not to the degree of what we're getting ready to do now. So why is this important? Because religion is sustained by two factors: fear and guilt. And if it's one subject that the church has used for a long time to keep people in fear and guilt, it is in that subject of tithing. And it has to be corrected, and it's got to be corrected now. I may lose some friends, preachers may not ever invite me no more, but I think I've already been through that, so it doesn't matter. Go with me in our text today and
we're back. So here's the thing. That video, that clip, it doesn't give the entire sermon justice, for one. You don't get the gist of what he was talking about. People have went on their fanciful minds, travels of talking about the fact that he may have been talking about the fact that all types of tithing is wrong. But that is not what he's talking about. Some people have went into dialogue about the possibility of the sermon being about tithing under the law, tithing pre-promise, which is the time of Abraham, when Abraham gave to Melchizedek a tenth of what he had just received. And Melchizedek just came out of the wilderness, the king of Salem. If you haven't read The Alchemist, you might not know what I mean by that one. Some people were going and talking about how the promise, then under the law of giving a tenth of what you earn, about it going to the priests, the Levites, and how it's food and not money. Others have talked about how in the dispensation of grace that you are to give based on your heart. Now, those people, the last one, are actually more correct about what Creflo Dollar was talking about in the full sermon. In the full sermon, yes, he wants you to throw away all the books that he talked about about tithing in the past. But in the full sermon, what he's talking about is when you give, it should be from your heart. Now, one thing I don't understand is how it took this long to get there. This man has been preaching I'm 50 for as long as I can remember. Being here in Atlanta, I've known the Creflo Dollar for a long time. I've never understood how pastors who claim that they believe in Jesus, that they're following the teachings of Jesus, consistently miss where the woman, the old woman, this is the crux of it, the old woman who came up and she gave 2 pennies. I've heard preachers preach about this, but yet they still want that 10%. But this woman who gave 2 pennies, your Jesus, your Yeshua, said that this woman has given more than anybody else, than all the rich people who came and gave loads of money, that she had actually given more because she gave from her heart. You can talk about Abraham and Melchizedek. You can quote Malachi. You could talk about tithing in every other form of fashion. But if you are a true follower of Yeshua like you claim, that is the time that he talked about it, according to your book, according to the story. That's the time he talked about it. So all other mentionings should not be valid, should not hold the same weight. But why does it? Why does it hold the main weight? And mind you, stay with me, because I'm going to get to what you missed from Creflo Dollar, what you should have been paying attention to, what you should have caught, that he said blatantly in your face. Y'all still gonna roll with him, because I've seen people defending him. Oh, he done learned something, and he came out and told the truth, because he done learned something, and God has moved him, and he done burnt all these people, took all these damn people money for all these years, now made himself filthy wealthy, and y'all still like, oh. But anyway, none of those older writings should have the weight that you claim your Yeshua has. You should be rocking with that. You should be rocking with the idea of that. But these pastors can't do it. They can't do it for the simple sake that if they did, they would lose their money. Let's be real. It's a money grab. How many times is there give an uncommon seed, give more than you can bear, show God your commitment through love. Now, he talked about that. He stressed it in that format. But how many of y'all are doing that? How many pastors are doing that? How many of them make sure that the right type of music is playing in order to incite you to give? If you think about it, watch any sermon, participate in any sermon, and you will see as the pastor begins to wind down and the music is playing and they getting ready for that offering, they gonna get you into an emotional state that is most likely for you to give. The successful ones. The less successful ones, they don't do that because they're not playing on, they don't know how. Let me put it that way. They ain't. What did my man Bobby Axelrod say? Everybody can watch Bruce Lee movies, but that don't mean they know karate. All these pastors know that the money grab is vital. The problem is most of them don't know how to do it so that people give. They don't know how to get you emotionally set up for the give. But most of the time they do. Now, if they just said give from your heart, just come to the church and give from your heart. You know what? We're not even going to have a session of giving so that it can be displayed. Think about it. In your teaching with Yeshua and the old lady, there was a procession of the wealthy and a procession of the rich to give so that everybody can see it. And then he said those people already have their reward. Everybody was able to see it and see who gave what. Is that not the same thing that you do in your church? When everybody walks up and give, drop off their envelope. I grew up in a Baptist church. That's how we did it. You had to walk up and drop it off. or it's displayed by the envelopes passing along the aisle to the ushers on either side, or the collection plate going by, and people. How many comedy movies have they picked on people who the woman is nudging the man because he ain't trying to give in that collection plate? Is that not the same that you're putting it on display? You see, the real thing that Creflo was talking about was the fact that they used guilt and fear as the pusher in order for you to give, when he was, and now he's saying that it should just be from your heart. Well, you got $30 million, so you good. But, well, there's never enough money. But he's now trying to change it, flip it, and say that it is from your heart, which is actually the teaching that Yeshua was teaching. So I applaud him for that. But why don't he now tell the whole truth? Now, let me tell you what you guys were missing in that video. This is what you was missing. This is what, if you weren't paying close attention, it would have slipped by you. In the very beginning of the video, he talked about the fact that fear and guilt is what religion is based off of. It's what props religions up. He blatantly told you that it is through fear and guilt, but then he distracted you by talking about money. Because as soon as he starts talking about money, you forget about your spirituality and you go right into the material. Because the spiritual part left you, because you want to hold on to your house. You want to be able to buy cars. You want to buy clothes. You want to buy food. You want to buy vacations. You want to buy, make as much as I can, have as much as I can. God bless me with as much as I can with me doing the least amount of work as possible. That's what you want. That's what most people want. Hell, I do. I want to get the most money with doing the least amount of work. That's most people. Period. I'll admit it. But the swerve was the fact that he said that it was propped up on fear and guilt. He'll go as far as the money because he can distract you with the money. But why is he afraid to go beyond that? Why is he afraid, other than the fact that he knows that he would lose everything, every person in his... Well, you know what? Some people still rock with him. Yeah. But if religion is propped up on fear and guilt, and he only focused on money and talked about how money, by using that, people would give more, as if their giving would usher them into heaven, when your own books contradict itself and says, one, that you just have to believe, but then it talks about faith by works alone are dead, that you got to put in the works. There are groups that hold on to that. You can't get in unless you worship, unless you keep the Sabbath. There are groups that believe only 144,000 are going to be sealed and the rest will live on earth. There are those that you got to be white to make it into heaven. You know, there are so many different, you got to be baptized or sprinkled on, dunked, dipped, whatever. There's so many other rules and regulations that different ones have. If you're a Calvinist, you fated to go to heaven or hell. It's already been determined, so it doesn't matter what you do right now. But he only talks about money because it's predicated on that. It's predicated on money. But isn't the whole religion based on fear and guilt? Is it not that if you don't abide by this religion, you will go to hell? Now, he wouldn't go that far, but that's how far he should have went. Should not Christianity, Islam, Judaism, all the isms, should not a true religion and understanding of the Creator be that when you come to know yourself and develop a universal morality on how to function that doesn't injure another person's ability to pursue life, liberty, and happiness and everything else, that at that point, when you develop your connection to the Creator to which you are a part of, you derive from, that then you get to join him in heaven, join it in heaven, and him or her. Should it not be that when you live a life filled with grace. Regardless of what deity you believe, what version of the deity, but when you just live a life full of grace, a life full of kindness and compassion, a life where you love your fellow man, you love your brother as you love yourself, you love your wife as you love yourself, you try to do the least amount of harm as possible and the most amount of good as possible. Should you not be teaching a religion that says that just be a good person and come to understand the divinity within you, and then you go to heaven, or whatever you want to call it, you ascend to the higher planes of consciousness? But you could have actually talked about Creflo Dollar, about how fear and guilt is what keeps people in religion. There are many people who are going to listen to this video that are not, they don't believe what I believe, they don't follow what I teach, they are wholeheartedly Christian, and they are going to have dissent against this video. But let me ask you a question. You will say to my face, and you will say in public, that you follow Jesus because you love Jesus and what Jesus has done for you and what you've experienced in your life and da-da-da-da-da. But let's be honest for just a moment. You were originally taught to fear Jesus. You were originally taught to fear what would happen if you don't believe in this Jesus. You were taught that by your parents, for the most part. You weren't taught that by your parents. A revelation happened. You were taught something to that effect. Most people, 99%, there's the few. You picked it up from your parents, you picked it up from the people you was around, picked it up from your school, you picked it up from your friends, you picked it up from the neighborhood, whoever. Because America is a majority Christian society. It's losing it, but it's a majority of Christian society. Admit for once that your fear of hell is why you can't let it go, why you can't recognize the truth that you've been held captive by fear and guilt, that you're in a mental prison, a mental slavery. And before you say this stupid ass thing that people keep saying, well, if I'm wrong, then nothing happens to me, but if I'm right, I go to heaven. Well, what if the Muslims are right? Then you go to Muslim hell. What if the Jews are right? Then you go to Sheol. What if the Buddhists are right? Then you return back as a whole nother creature. What if somebody else is right? It is not a question that is you versus the atheist. You versus the atheist, sure, that question works. But against any other religion, the question doesn't work anymore. You see, the question doesn't work. See, if the Kemetic science is right, then when your soul is weighed, when your heart is weighed on a scale against a feather of my eye, and you find yourself, it finds you out of balance, you don't go into the field of reeds. You don't go into heaven. No. Your heart is devoured. You go to hell, basically. So that question doesn't hold weight. But the true thing that he skipped that part. People skipped that part. And I really want to hear the discussion on that. That why didn't he say anything concerning that, since religion is propped up on fear and guilt, how they have used that. For black people in America and most people around the world, but especially black people in the Americas and throughout Europe and throughout Africa, your Christianity is based on the fear of the whip, the fear of the gun, the fear of being hung. It's based on that, because our ancestors weren't Christians. Some people are going to come over here and talk about how there was Christianity in Africa. You take that one verse of Ethiopia, and Ethiopia is not all of Africa, and it is not where the majority of the transatlantic slaves came from. That's not where it came from. The people who are native to America, the 5 civilized tribes, in order to gain that, they had to convert to Christianity. It was through economic force. Beyond that, it was through decimation of disease and violence. Christianity, Islam, in its root, spread through violence. It spread through the violence of Vespasian, and then on up until you get to Theodosius, where he outlawed any religion other than Christianity and murdered anybody who disagreed. The violence of the church throughout Europe, the violence of the church throughout Africa. When they carved up Africa, the violence of spreading Christianity through violence. Muslim, Islam, Ibn Sahi and Malik spread it throughout the Arab nations through violence, through war. And then into the Iberian Peninsula through violence, through war. And then into sub-Saharan Africa through violence, through war. These religions have never come about because of peaceful speech. Because you came and you convinced me through peaceful speech. It has never happened because of that. It happened through fear, violence, and it has been maintained from generation to generation to generation through guilt. You learned it from your mama, daddy. You learned it from your grandma, granddaddy. You learned it from the community, and they learned it from their mom, their dad, their grandparents, and their mom, their dad, their grandparents. And it's a situation that has proliferated itself throughout the generations simply through guilt. You have to believe it because that's what your family believes. Do you want to disappoint your family? Do you know how hard it was for me to disappoint my grandmother when I told her I do not believe in Christianity? You know how hard it was the first time I looked into my family's face? Now by the time I told my whole family, it wasn't as hard because they were used to me being different. But I still felt it. I felt a little bit of guilt. I felt like I should go back. You know how much guilt I felt with my kid's mom as she saw me grow out of it, and I wanted to fight to figure it out, to stay in it. But I would see her face, and even though she never said anything, she never pushed me, she never tried to make me feel bad or make me feel guilty or anything like that, I could still see it. I could still see it in her face. The guilt is real. The guilt is so real. So don't lie to yourself and say that you have not maintained this religion through guilt. Disappointing yourself, disappointing others, through the fear that you may go to hell. You may go to a place that's never been proven to exist in the format that you're talking about. Hell exists all around you. Look at anybody who's going through suffering to the level that you can't even imagine. They are going through hell. There are people who are going through emotional hells right now, sitting right next beside you, sitting across from you, working with you, driving in the car next to you. There are people going through so much emotional hell, physical hell, financial hell. And at the same time, so many people going through so much physical heaven, spiritual heaven, mental heaven, relationship heaven. It's all around you too. But as long as you're carrying around the fear and the guilt, the things that blocks your foundation chakra is fear. Guilt blocks your sacral chakra. So your security and your pleasure are being blocked by your religion. But you have a false sense of pleasure, not knowing that you're feeling guilty. Anyway, Creflo Dollar, I applaud you for at least correcting a little bit of what you've been teaching. I applaud you for how you swerved the people with that teaching and distracted them into realizing that they should give from their heart. I think that your people are probably going to give you even more money because of it, because now they feel you're more down to their level. You've humbled yourself. You're just like them. And they'll probably give you more money. And you can now go write a whole new book. I guarantee there's a book will come out within 12 months, a correction book on tithing. And everybody, all his people, gonna go buy it. This man is about to make a butt ton of money. Again. Smooth operation, my brother. Smooth operation. But I'm ashamed at the fact that you still teach this religion that's based on fear and guilt. That is how they've maintained control over our people, is through this fear and guilt of this religion. And you continue to persist in doing the same. You are a Sambo to the black people. I would not and for those who are confused, Sambo was the one in the book that was all up on maps. Uncle Tom was actually helping black people escape and trying to keep them from getting their ass whooped. Y'all need to go read that book, because then I took away the person who was beneficial and got y'all naming the wrong person. But anyway, y'all have a great day. Remember, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good vibrations.